In July 2025, under the blazing sun of Burkina Faso, the earth shook, not from bombs or bulldozers, but from brand new tractors rolling across cotton fields. This was not charity, not foreign aid, but a radical shift. Trade without brokers, dignity without debt. For the first time, farmers read contracts in their own language. What unfolded was not just about cotton. It was about sovereignty. And in a quiet corner of West Africa, history began to turn its page. No cameras, no summit stages, just two flags and a field of cotton. In July 2025, Burkina Faso and Bangladesh signed a bilateral deal that bypassed traditional global trade. African cotton would now move directly to South Asian factories, skipping European middlemen and exploitative pricing. The agreement was simple yet revolutionary. Bangladesh secured high-quality cotton for its garment industry, while Burkina Faso gained fairer prices and, more importantly, access to tractors, fertilizer, irrigation systems, and technical training. Within a year, over 400 tractors and 68,000 tons of fertilizer transformed the fields. Young agronomists from both nations began tackling pests, storage, and transport problems together. But the deal wasn't only about cotton. It created scholarships, vocational training, logistics partnerships, and even joint peacekeeping drills. For the first time in decades, Burkina Faso was no longer a supplier of raw hope, but a value. President Ibrahim Traoré declared, "We will never again sell dignity for a lower tariff." The shift rippled quickly across the countryside. In Ouagadougou, calm streets masked quiet optimism. In rural villages, farmers felt something new: ownership. If cotton could be traded with dignity, what else might follow? In Kumbi, the cracked soil once erased both roads and hope. Villagers said, "When the roads vanish, so do the dreams." In the past, mothers couldn't reach clinics, and onions rotted before reaching markets. But by 2025, local engineers, trained through a domestic infrastructure program, built solar-powered roads and bridges with their own hands. Stories spread. A young mechanic, once laboring abroad, now repaired bulldozers for national projects. A $12 million tomato processing plant created jobs where only migration dreams once lived. Isaka, who once dreamed of Marseille, now led a cooperative planting drought-resistant rice. Traoré gave us tools, he said, but more than that, he gave us a reason to stay. This transformation wasn't framed in headlines, but in harvests, in hands that now held tools instead of begging bowls. Dependency, once treated as natural, began to fracture. And as ordinary Burkinabe built their future, the global conversation had to shift too. History rarely changes in conference halls. It shifts in cotton fields, dusty roads, and in the voices of those who once had none. What happened in Burkina Faso was not simply an agreement, it was a change in posture, from asking to asserting, from waiting to building. But every act of independence draws resistance. In Brussels, diplomats dismissed it as regional. In Washington, analysts called it symbolic. Yet on the ground, people saw real tractors, real irrigation, real change. That contrast unsettled the old order. The idea that African nations could trade directly, build independently, and partner horizontally without permission is deeply threatening to those who profit from dependency. So resistance arrived, not with guns, but with bureaucracy, subtle aid cuts, discrediting campaigns. The battlefield was paperwork and narrative. Still, momentum grew. Farmers whispered, if cotton could change, why not cocoa? Why not gold, lithium, water? Could the same dignity extend across Africa's vast resources? The potential was undeniable, and it no longer depended on permission from Paris, Brussels, or Washington. For President Traoré, the message was clear. Trade is not trade unless it honors humanity behind the harvest. His words spread across classrooms, union halls, and campfires. A nation once spoken for had begun to speak for itself. The spring of 2025 revealed more than cotton's transformation. It showed what happens when sovereignty moves from rhetoric to reality. A farmer in Bobo Dioulasso, once trapped in debt cycles, now held a tractor lease in his own language. A schoolteacher in Ouagadougou taught children with textbooks printed locally, funded by cotton revenues. a young woman engineer, once ignored, now directed a solar irrigation project. This was not aid, it was ownership. And that ownership altered migration patterns, village life, and even national pride. Fewer youths dreamed of Europe. They dreamed of building Burkina Faso. Still, international unease grew. Aid organizations warned of unsustainable experiments. Corporations worried about losing cheap raw cotton. Western governments feared a precedent. If Burkina Faso could bypass the old system, others might follow. The whispers of rebellion were louder than the tractors themselves. Resistance came in the form of red tape, delayed shipments, sudden audits, questions about quality standards. Diplomats raised eyebrows. Investors hesitated. The message was clear. Independence would not be easy. Yet, resilience held. Burkina Faso's farmers had endured worse: droughts, pests, abandonment. Bureaucracy, though frustrating, was not enough to halt them. The cotton deal became a symbol, replicated in conversations from Accra to Addis Ababa. Could this be Africa's turning point? A future of horizontal partnerships, free from conditional aid and structural debt? What began in cotton no longer belonged only to Burkina Faso. It belonged to every farmer who believed his crop deserved respect, every student who believed her language deserved dignity, every nation that dreamed of equal footing. In dusty fields and crowded markets, an unspoken oath formed. Never again will we sell dignity for survival. By late 2025, the ripple effects were undeniable. Burkina Faso was no longer simply a cotton exporter. It was a case study in sovereignty. A precedent had been set, trade rooted in dignity, not dependency. But the story is not without danger. Pressure will rise through media narratives, trade barriers, and quiet threats. What began with cotton may expand to cocoa, gold, lithium, even water, the very resources the world relies on but rarely honors. Each step will face pushback. Yet the question remains, can the world let go long enough to listen? From Boston to Bamako, from Nairobi to New Orleans, the meaning of Burkina Faso's rebellion is clear. It is not about isolation. It is about recognition. President Traoré didn't simply sign a deal. He cut an old thread and began sewing a new fabric, one woven with dignity, equality, and self-determination. This story is not just Burkina Faso's. It is about every hand that grows, every voice that demands to be heard, and every nation that dares to dream on its own terms.